So I will start really quick with compaction equipment. Some of you are going to disagree with me on this, and I think most of the people that are going to do that are kind of more the old school type. But here is our reversible plate compactor. So this is a Weber CR3. I personally love Weber and think they by far make the best compactors, but I know there's Wacker. There's all sorts of companies out there. So Wacker and Weber seem to be the big two, and definitely the nicer of most of the compactors. But so our CR3 is just under 8,000 pounds centrifugal force. That's how they measure compaction equipment, the amount of force that it puts down. I personally would never go smaller than a machine like this for hardscape work. I know compaction equipment is pretty expensive. It's an investment, but if you think about what's usually going on when your guys are compacting, you have one guy compacting, the rest of them are standing around waiting for that guy to finish compacting before they can spread more material. So if you look at that way, you're wasting a lot of labor. The bigger machine you go, the bigger lifts you can do, the quicker you can compact. So like I said, this is the absolute smallest machine I would go with. If you are doing open graded base, which I'll talk about shortly, like we are, you can probably get away with a smaller machine, but once again, I would say I would still be using a machine like this. We are generally doing probably 6-inch lifts or so with our open graded base with this machine. I'm pretty confident in the compaction that we're getting from it. So this is a reversible plate compactor, so it's great for most soils. The other couple kinds of compactors I'm going to talk about we don't have or don't have yet, and so I'll put up pictures so you guys can see what those are if you don't know. So the next kind is jumping jacks, so I think what they also call rammers. So we do not have one of these. We have very little use for one, but they do come in handy sometimes. I'll put a picture of that above so you guys can see what it looks like. So these are great for getting around really tight areas, and they're also really good for clay soils, which luckily we don't have too much of, or else we probably would have one of those. But they're pretty inexpensive. Definitely not made to be compacting huge patios and stuff though. Another type of compactor are roller compactors, which are a little bit newer to the industry. I think the first one from ESI came out a few years ago. We are actually waiting to get one very, very soon from Paver. We're getting another Weber. So these were invented to pretty much just embed your pavers. So specifically paving slabs, as most compactors, you can get away with some smaller compactors, cannot set paving slabs into the bedding layer without cracking them or breaking them. So those are really cool, but only made for embedding your pavers into your bedding sand. So a little bit of a limited use. Then obviously you have your rollers, which we also don't have and probably never will have. Rollers are great if you're doing a lot of bigger installs, driveways, stuff like that. I think they also work pretty well on clay soils. So that's kind of my thoughts on compaction, guys. Ideally, having a machine similar to a Weber, CR6 around that size would be ideal. Some people like to go bigger, but if you're around that, you're in pretty good shape. And really anything around this size is great. I just would not go any smaller. So that's it for compaction, guys. So now I'll talk a little bit about base material, and this is something we have changed completely this year. I'll talk about kind of the older way of installing. Install current, it's still the way ICPI specs doing your installs, but we are shying away from pretty much completely ending. So the way most people do it now is to use a dense grade gravel type material. So it's basically like a 3/4 inch clear, but with fines in it. There's names for all these materials that are different across the country, so stick with me if you don't know what I'm talking about. You'll figure it out. But so gravel for your base material is normal. It takes more force to compact. It also is susceptible to freeze thaw. And then usually what you would do is a 1-inch bedding layer of concrete sand, a gritty sand that's not going to hold water. So a common misconception is people are using stone dust instead of concrete sand for their bedding layer. Some people are even using stone dust completely for their whole install. That's kind of being phased out. Luckily, I did a little experiment one time with a friend of mine who works for one of my local dealers, and we took a Dunkin' Donuts cup, and we took put in about 6 inches of gravel in one and 6 inches of gravel in another, and then topped one of them with an inch of sand and one with an inch of stone dust, and poured water into it. And it was really crazy to see the drainage between the two. So stone dust holds water, so it's more susceptible to freeze thaw. Your pavers are gonna shift more. So if you are using stone dust, you can fight with me about it. I know a lot of the people who use stone dust are kind of stuck in their ways, not always, but sometimes. Switch to sand. If you're looking to move on to kind of the next phase, what I think is the future of paver installs, and what we use for all of our wall installs as well, is an open graded material. So on all of our paver installs now, we are using a 3/4 inch open graded stone. So that's basically a clean stone. You can get some stuff that's double washed. This stuff is single wash, so it's not super clean, but a lot cleaner than gravel is. So we are basically just swapping out our 3/4 inch, or our gravel for our 3/4 inch clear stone, and then we are swapping out our concrete sand for a 3/8 inch chip stone. You can see here, so another clean stone. This stuff is a little bit on the bigger side. We have another dealer that we buy from that has a little bit smaller, cleaner stone that we really like. Chip stone is a little hard to find, but if you can find it, it's the way to go. It's easier to screed. You don't have to worry about things settling as much with open grade stone. It's a lot less likely to settle. It compacts quicker. It does still require compaction. I know some of the paver manufacturers are preaching that this material does not need to be compacted. They're saying that it's at 95% proctor density as soon as it's dumped out of a truck, which I completely disagree with. When you're pounding this stuff down into a soil, it's going to settle down. So maybe the material itself is pretty close, but it needs to be set down into the soil that's beneath it. So we have switched completely to open graded. It's a little bit more expensive, but it also installs a lot faster. So in the end, it probably evens out. So I think this is the way of the future for paver installs, just for the fact of it not being susceptible to freeze thaw. It compacts quicker, installs quicker. So you guys will have to let me know what you think about this. I think it's for sure going to be just the norm. Curious if any of you are starting to try this. It seems like this year it's really caught on. They're calling it hybrid installs. So you basically are installing with these base materials and you install poly sand like you normally would. So let me know what you guys think. As usual, please give me any video suggestions. I have come up with a few that I'm going to do myself, post for you guys, but if you have anything you can think of, please let me know. I know a lot of you are super excited to see the video on kind of how I got going and why I got going, and I'm very excited to get that one out there, because I think everyone should be as excited about starting their own business as I was, and should be able to do as well as I have. So being able to share what I did and how I did it, I think will be big help to some people. So that's it for this one, guys. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys soon.